So I've just finished my second documentary with two-time Britain's Strongest Man competitor, Rhino England, and this is how it went.
Raise it up for Rhino England!
So with this being the second one in the series, I wanted to do it with someone a bit more aligned with the strongman industry, and Ryan was a perfect choice. He had a sick backstory that I really wanted to explore, and a lot of contrasting stuff going on that I thought made for a really interesting story. Now I don't want to spoil the actual story, so if you want to go and check it out, there will be a link in the description to the finished documentary. But for now, let's crack on. So I drove down to Ryan's hometown of Bristol. I stayed the night just because I was driving down for like 2 hours and I didn't want to be knackered for the whole shoot and have to drive back on the same day. On top of that, the shoot was at 12 o'clock, so I didn't want to have to get up extra early just to arrive there. Plus, it meant if I was staying over there, I had more time to check the gear, liaise with my first AC, and just sort of take it a bit more chill. And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to make anything rushed or hectic, and I didn't want to come across as absolutely shattered the whole time when filming with Ryan. So yeah, basically here's how that first part went. So I have just arrived at the hotel in Bristol, ready to film with Rhino England tomorrow morning. So I'm going to go and check through all my gear, make sure everything's charged and ready to go, and I'll also walk you through each piece I've got and why I've brought it. Currently filming this on the Sony a7S II, which is why the quality looks absolutely crap, but it's because I need to use my FX3 and FX30 as the cameras for tomorrow, and I don't want to be fucking around with them and using up battery that I don't want to waste. Plus this is small and handheld and I can whiz it about and stuff, so it's all good. Yeah, let's go. First up, we have my trusty silverback bag. This is actually just a gym bag. It has huge amounts of space in it. And all I had to do was buy some padded inserts to put all my gear in. And it's like the best camera bag I've owned. And it's like 40 quid cheaper than the sack pack. So it was a no-brainer. We got the headphones. So these are essential for monitoring the audio on the interview. Next up is the Sigma Art 50mm lens. This is a solid lens, it looks beautiful, and when I put it on the FX30, because of the crop factor, it's going to turn it basically into a 75mm, which is perfect for the tight angle on the interview. Now, V-mount battery number 1. This is essential because we're filming the whole thing and I don't want to be switching batteries all the time, and I don't want to have the worry that I've not charged one of the 20 different batteries that I need. I've also got a smaller one which is already attached to one of the rigs that I'm about to get out now. Final thing in that compartment is some gels. Now for my interview setup, I actually want to have the hair light as a nice blue colour. I'm going to stick a gel over the light just so it looks and gives off the sort of the look I want basically. I've also got polarizers and ND filters. In here are my 3 Waylight tube lights. These are essential for any extra depth or colour in the scene. Finally, moving on to lighting gear. In this case, I have a light bounce and reflector, just in case, obviously. Then I've got my 2 main lights. I've got the Neewer 230B bicolour light. Finally, I've got my other Neewer light. This is the, what the fuck is this one? So this is the CB150. It's only 5600 Kelvin and 150 watts, but it's bright enough to do what I need it to do, and especially as it's only going to be the hair light anyway. I do have a 10 meter extension lead, as long as a bunch of other stuff, so power wise we should be okay. So yeah, that's the lighting, that's all good to go. So yeah, now all that's left is for me to get a good night's sleep, and I shall check back in with you in the morning. So I headed over to Tom's place. Tom also lives in Bristol, which is why I chose him to be my first AC on this. I've also known Tom my whole life anyway. We basically grew up in the same village, we went to the same school, same college, and we both studied media together. And I worked with him on pretty much all of my college projects. So that meant I already knew his style of filming. I knew that he was capable of doing whatever I needed him to do. And also, it was just nice to catch up with him. So moving on, we arrived at the location, met up with Ryan, who was like twice as big as I expected him to be. He gave us a nice little tour of the gym and introduced himself, and then I just got cracking looking for a nice little setup for the interview. On top of that, Ryan actually closed the gym for the day on the second day of it being open, just so we could film, which we were really grateful of. Because I'd already seen pictures of the gym before I drove down to Bristol, I knew roughly where I was going to put things in terms of interviews and the sort of shots I was going to get. And I knew that I wanted his giant Rhino sign to be in the background of the main talking head section. Now the actual interview section, we did something slightly different, and it was actually Tom's idea. So basically me and Tom had a call before I actually went down to Bristol, just to go over the interview questions, make sure everything was structured correctly, and make sure we both knew exactly what we were doing. And while we was on this call, Tom suggested that we should have the B cams actually handheld instead of on sticks. And I thought that was actually a really good idea, because it meant that we weren't tied down to two separate camera angles. We would still have the main sort of wide shot as the safety. We always knew that one was going to be obviously stationary, and it was always going to be framed and capturing everything. But then we had a bit more fun to explore with the B cam, which is what Tom did. This meant he could get close-ups and different angles and things and make up some really interesting shots throughout the interview. We just had to make sure it was one long take or one long video clip, so we could sync it up perfectly to the original A cam footage as well as the audio. So this is exactly the same camera setup as last time. I had the FX3 with a Sigma 24-70 2.8, and then I also had an FX30 as the B cam with a 50mm on there. Again, everything was the same lens brand and the same camera brand. So it just meant everything, when we was putting it together, the footage matched up and you couldn't really tell that it was shot on two different cameras. Also, props to Ryan on the interview for giving some really good answers on all the questions I was asking him. A lot of the stuff was really personal, so I'm really grateful that he was open and honest about his experiences. And I think the fact that he got a little bit emotional throughout showed that he really cared about the cause, and he really cared about his family, which is exactly what I was trying to push through this documentary. Moving on to the B-roll, again this was very easy. I had a whole plan set out, so I knew exactly the stuff I was going to get, and I knew, because of the questions I was asking him and the fact that I already knew his backstory going into it, I could predetermine some of the answers and make sure I've got supporting footage for important points of the actual, for the actual storyline and structure. Now, because we were restricted just to the gym and the surrounding area, like the car park and stuff, I tried to confine everything to that one location, which meant the B-roll did seem to get a bit stale throughout the main documentary. But at the same time, there wasn't a fat lot I could have done about that at the time. On the plus side though, Ryan's original gym that he first started training at was just opposite where we were filming. Now the gym isn't actually around anymore and it's in ruins, but the fact that we could go and film there and just sort of get Ryan to reminisce as part of the B-roll really added for some nice looking contrasting footage. Now the thing that I want to emphasize the most with these documentaries is there is no budget involved. Everything from the camera gear to any expenses and stuff is coming directly out of my pocket. Now I do work full-time as a videographer, but all these projects are purely just passion projects and spec documentaries. I'm doing it purely because I enjoy making them, and I have a goal of making it to, you know, somewhere big in the strongman industry. So while they are still small scale and very short, I do still put a lot of time, effort and money into them to get them as good as possible. Now I do own most of the gear outright as just part of my job, but at the same time I do have to borrow things here and there just to help put these productions together, and I'm always very grateful of athletes or, you know, gyms that allow me to come and film there free of charge, which just enables me to tell the stories that I want to tell and sort of get these athletes out there that aren't particularly in the limelight. Like Ryan came 7th at Britain's, and you don't hear about him enough. Like, he's got an incredible story, he's ridiculously strong. Everyone deserves their chance to tell their story, and I think that's what I'm trying to do with this series. So if you feel like you've got someone that's competing at national or world level that you think is underrated and not sort of pushed enough on socials or through the media, put them in the comments down below and I'll reach out to them and try and get a documentary done. Like I said, I'm trying to push this as much as possible in 2025, and I want the opportunity to go and film at Giants Live and stuff with these athletes, just to show off the sort of stuff that goes on there and what the athletes feel. There isn't just the standard mainstream stuff that you see on Giants Live. So if you want to help support me and the channel, subscribe and like this video, and put down in the comments some of the stuff that you'd like to see more of going forward into 2025. Have an awesome day or night, depending on whatever time you're watching this, and I will see you in the next one.